All right, everyone, welcome back to Talkin' Soccer. I am your host, Justin Horniker, and today we're going to talk a little bit about the KC Currents 4-0 loss to the Chicago Red Stars. A little bit late on this video. I needed a couple days to process it. Not really, I just needed a couple days to take it easy. But the important thing is, gave me an opportunity to really dive into this game today and really run down what went wrong. So Kansas City coming in, 13 unbeaten, top of the table, which technically still top of the table, although now with a -2 goal differential, which is just wild to see when you look at the standings printed out like that. But it gave me an opportunity to, really dissect what happened here, because a lot of this could be explained away as KC Current are playing 3 games in a week. They had 3 days rest as opposed to the Red Stars having 5 days rest, and didn't really do that much of a rotation to their squad. Some differences in that back line with Alex Loera not quite back, ready to play full 90, and Addison Merrick getting the day off. So some changes on the right side of that back 3, but there were some definite issues. I guess the left side, Kristen Edmonds still in there, Elizabeth Ball still in there, but as we'll talk about here in a bit, they had some struggles in this game, and I think a lot of it can just be tired legs making for poor decisions. When you're fatigued, you run out of patience. You don't make the decisions that you might when you're fresh, when you're well rested. So you can explain some of that away. That being said, a lot of teams in the NWSL are going to be playing on tired legs the next couple of weeks as we crunch the schedule as we get to the playoffs and as we have those international windows as well, as we talked about earlier this week. And some of this can also be explained by Mal Pugh just being an MVP candidate and having one of those games that you just throw your hands up. And I'll play a couple of the highlights here. Mal Pugh's first and second goals, which are Chicago's second and third goals. And defensively, obviously, you make the first tackle here and that ball's saved. But once Mal Pugh is up to speed and she's running at the defenders and you're striving back and not making a good read on the ball to begin with, there's not much you can do on this first goal. Mal Pugh is able to kind of round the corner and put it in on an empty net, which we'll talk about Cassie Miller's play here in a little bit as well. And on the second goal, she just is able to, game her acceleration away where by the time she's running full speed with the ball, there's no one around her. So she dribbles at the defense and is able to kind of cut it inside and kind of split between Edmonds and Haley Mace and just curl the ball into the corner. What are you going to do? So that explains some of that, right? When you have a MVP player who's just able to exploit those weaknesses. But KC Current have played these games before where they allow some goals, but they're able to come back and score. Let's break down the defense first, and then we'll get into the offensive struggles, because ultimately defense and defensive miscues affect all sides of the ball. If you can't clear a ball out, if you can't, maintain possession and be able to cycle it through, that's when things get stretched out. Casey going for a lot of long balls, a lot of fast break opportunities, and really ended up biting them. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that AD French getting a little bit of a breather here. Obviously, a lot of games. She's had a heavy workload. And Cassie Miller, stepping in against her former team, but she did not have a very good game. Cassie Miller, I'll put a couple of screenshots here, just doesn't have the command of her box like AD French has. And you can see that especially with this first goal where, yes, Elizabeth Ball misses the clearance. But if Cassie Miller is just a little bit less flat-footed, a little bit more aggressive to collecting this ball, I don't think that goal happens, or at least she's able to put a hand on it. And instead, it's too flat-footed, stays on the line, and Chicago's just able to pick their spot. And you can kind of see that with that the first Mallory Pugh goal as well, where she's able to kind of round off Cassie Miller. And if Cassie Miller is a little bit more aggressive, trying to collect that ball, that goal doesn't happen. So Cassie Miller, yes, has to be better. But that's not the entire story, because she wasn't helped out by her defense here as well. And ultimately, I don't know if AD French Like, maybe the score line isn't 4-0, maybe it's 2-0, but ultimately that doesn't really change the scoring aspect of things. And it doesn't help when the Current are just straight up not marking defenders. So here's kind of the screenshot on the fourth goal, which by that point, Casey just seemed exhausted and just leaves the Chicago Red Star attacker Amanda Kowalski wide open. And like, you can't really blame Cassie Miller on that because you got to mark the back post. That's not going to be the goalkeeper's responsibility. The goalkeeper is expecting that back post player to be marked, and she wasn't. And is just able to get up and put that ball wherever she wanted to. And it wasn't the only occurrence of players just not getting picked up. Something along the scheme just wasn't working. And I think it does come with just players being overextended. Both wingers were pinching up hard, especially going down 1-0 early. You got to, go after it if you want that goal back. And once you're down 2-0, just push everyone forward. If you lose 2-0 or 4-0, who really cares, right? And that's essentially what they did. They pushed everyone up. Chicago was able to exploit that, as you saw on both those Malpool goals, really. Casey is just pushed up, and she's able to use her speed. And in fact, on that second Chicago goal, Haley Mace gets the ball, goes end-to-end. The final pass wasn't there, and turns the ball around over to Chicago, and then they're gone. And that pass not being there speaks a lot to Casey's difficulties. So defense has a bad game. Elizabeth Ball has her worst game of the season. She had been kind of that rock of the back three, especially since they went to the back three all season long, and was not very good. 3 for 10 in defensive duels. Not very accurate in her long distance passing either. And FOBMOD had her at 5.4, which probably about right. She made some critical errors, and your center back just can't be doing that. But again, tired legs. Elizabeth Ball's been playing a lot of soccer lately and just gets completely exposed on a couple of those plays and nutmegged by Mallory Pugh. And once you kind of make a bad read, you miss a pass, then now you got to recover. And Elizabeth Ball was able to recover a few times, but you're doing that all game, it's going to get exploited. And that, leads to the lack of patience on the ball that we saw from the attacking side. Claire Lavagette had a couple really good possessions, and so Lolobanta gets taken down on the corner of the box, and here's the kind of screenshot for it. That ball gets played right into the keeper. And on this one as well, Claire Lavagette has the ball, has a couple of options. If she's a little more patient, she can cycle that ball around or even switch the play over to Haley Mace, who at this point isn't being marked, and, opens up that side of the field a little bit as everyone's kind of overloaded on the right side. Instead, takes this low XG shot that is ultimately saved relatively easily because the angle is just pretty bad. And when you are taking those low XG chances, and you can kind of see from the overall shots, Casey had more shots than Chicago did. Not shots on goal, just shots in general, but so many of them were coming from outside the box at bad angles and just going high and wide, and ultimately not really troubling Alyssa Nair too much. And Alyssa Nair had a great game as well, but I don't think there are any instances where she was asked to make some crazy, outrageous save. She was just solid in her positioning, and Casey didn't make her work hard enough. So that's kind of where it ends. Casey lose 4-0. Now, looking ahead to Sunday against Portland Thorns, what needs to happen? Late in the game, we saw it, and you saw this against Gotham too, and I think I pointed out in that video, where Casey switched to a double pivot. So they sent in Charnay Cran for Lola Bonta. Claire Lavagette goes central in that midfield four, so now you have the two up top, Claire Lavagette as that center attacking midfielder, and then the double pivot as Charnay Cran kind of slots in next to Dom Scott, which I think could be a solid strategy here for the game against Portland. Especially your attackers are very tired. Kristen Edmonds did not have a very good game. Neither did Cece Kaiser. So I think you could, give your attackers a little bit of a break, as well as kind of introduce a little more structure, give the back three some breathing room with those kind of two defensive midfielders camped in front of them. even if Dom Scott is more of your stay-at-home midfielder, and if it ends up being Chardonnay Coran, she's just a little bit more dynamic through that midfield. And I think you could even line up Claire Laviger there, honestly, and it would be a good position for her. That's kind of where she was lining up when the Victoria Pickett trade happened, or before that, when she was kind of taking over Victoria's Pickett's spot. And there's a lot of tactical adjustments you could do here, and that's the nice thing about Matt Potter, is he does make those tactical adjustments. But what you can't do, send out the same team you did for Chicago, make no adjustments, to get blown out by Portland Thorns. And now, not only are you losing 2 games in a row, dropping down the standings, which they're in first place, they're pretty much a lock for the playoffs at this point. You just can't be going into the playoffs having lost 2 crucial games like this. So here's to the weekend. Should be a great weekend of soccer. You have San Diego and Angel City selling out Snapdragon Stadium, and some great games on the men's side that we'll talk about a little bit as well. But in the meantime, if you thought this video was informative, give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel. And folks, we'll talk soon.